Yeah, I'll kick us off with another welcome. Welcome, everybody, to today's webinar, Breaking Down Silos. Yeah, fantastic to see you all on the webinar today. Appreciate everybody joining. Good morning, maybe just about still for some of you. Good afternoon to most, and good evening to anybody who's kind of all the way over with me. Yeah, we're very excited to present today. I know Adam's got some really great stuff to show you. For those of you that don't know us, my name's Jeff, part of the customer success team here at Sarazen. My role is all about making sure that you customers get the most out of your investment in our products. If you don't know me, then it's very nice to meet you, and I want to know you. So you feel free to reach out to me at any point if you want to get more out of Tikit.
And my name is Adam Dizaki. I'm with the product team. I'll be presenting today, and I'm responsible for our roadmap and the features get added. I obviously love talking to all of our customers and everyone else who wants to talk to me, certainly, about what we can do to make Tikit the absolute best ticketing solution from Microsoft Teams. So, I guess I'll take over and actually just jump in with this. Let's talk about the agenda.
Yeah, go for it. It looks like we've already done point one as well. So
because yeah, that's the best part. We've already done the very first part, which means we can jump right into just kind of some of the general housekeeping of stuff that we have to do before we start this webinar. And I won't spend a whole lot of time because I'll just jump right into it.
Everyone wants to get to point four pretty quick as well. I don't see these demos.
That's understandable. So rather small agenda. Let's get into housekeeping. And let's talk about, it's worth mentioning that the Sarazen 2025 ITSM Awards are now open. They are live. They are ready for submissions. Feel free to please actually submit, accordingly. We did this last year. We had some great entries. We had some great winners, and we're doing it again. And so if you have questions, if you want to see the criteria for actually submitting, for filling this out, we'd encourage you to check out the following link, or if it's easier, go ahead and scan the QR code. It's kind of why I'm buying some time here, so you could scan it if you'd prefer. And just some of the categories.
Just going to get my phone out and get a picture of that. Yeah, okay.
And just some of the categories that you can actually submit for, just at a high level, are we're looking for entries in best automation or integration, the best custom reporting with like Power BI, Excel, other types of tools that you might be using. Best custom branding, so things that align best to your company, maybe culture or your color scheme, etc. The best multi-department experience, which, I mean, coincidentally, we're going over that today.
Yeah, relevant.
It's super relevant. And then, of course, best ITSM process, which also kind of relevant to today. But again, if you have questions, feel free to go to that link. We want your submissions. If you have any idea, no matter how simple, no matter how complex, please submit it. We're interested. We're going to review all of them. We're very excited.
Yeah, and we want to celebrate, the amazing work you guys have been doing. I'm sure some of you want to celebrate yourselves, celebrate your team. So this is your chance to kind of see some of that recognition on that hard work that we know has been going on. So yeah, go ahead and do that.
And get bragging rights amongst, your peers and your colleagues and other Tikit customers. So please submit. All right, next thing. This is the last housekeeping item.
Actually, Adam, should we mention Q&A?
Oh, okay. Hang on.
Look, people might have questions.
And okay, all right, fine.
Give them that space.
Go for it. Okay, go for it.
Yeah, well, throughout this webinar, if you have any questions, whether it be about breaking down silos, multi-department ITSM, or just anything, Golden Banana Awards or anything else, the Q&A is open. So at the top of your Teams window, you'll see Q&A. You can go and ask a question in there. Depending on what it is, I might interrupt Adam and sort of voice it so it can be answered there and then, if it's kind of relevant to the right now. If not, then we will make sure we get to them all at the end of the webinar. But we won't, well, if we run out of time completely, then, which I don't think we will, then we've always got a chance to come back to you as well. So lots of opportunities. We might take some offline if it's sort of specific to your organization. but we'll make sure that every question does get answered in one way or another. So go ahead and ask those questions.
Yeah, and if you don't want to, have us if you don't want us to publish it, just include in the message, don't say my name or something, and we'll honor that. All right, so the very next thing, and also the last housekeeping item, because it's something I want to highlight because we've been talking about it for the last couple of months, and you might have spoken with Jeff about it. You might have spoken with me about it on a call. You might have seen it on Technically Speaking, which coincidentally is happening tomorrow. And it's what's going on with Service Catalog. When do we think this is actually, going to get released? When are we going to actually be able to use the Service Catalog within our organization? And so you might already know what's coming is I'm going to tell you what the time and the day is, and that is it's launching tonight. So that's when Service Catalog comes out. It's going to go out tonight. We're really excited to get this in everyone's hands, so everyone will see it first thing tomorrow morning. Yeah, that's that. I mean, I'm excited. That's what there is to say about it. It's going to be great. Okay, enough housekeeping. Let's get into today's webinar. And let me just tell you what. I'll spare Jeff here. Let's talk about today's webinar, which is what's multi-department? How can we leverage multi-department? How can you and your cohorts in other departments work together to break down silos, build resilient processes, but more importantly, create a one-stop shop for everyone utilizing Tikit and Tikit Virtual Agent? Because when it comes to service management, this is not just an IT exclusive concept. It might start there, and I suspect that for many of you on this call, I could see the number that it has started there. You probably started with a traditional IT service desk, and that excellence in service management actually extends itself into the rest of the organization, into teams such as like HR and marketing and accounting and finance and facilities, any other number of teams that you can actually think of. Because with Tikit, everyone has the opportunity to become their own service desk to the rest of the organization. Now, I guess what specifically do I mean by that? What do I mean by the traditional IT scenarios and these service desks? Well, in a traditional IT scenario, and again, it's probably one that many of you are familiar with, you probably handle tickets such as, can you reset my password to a system I need to get in today? I want to maybe get a laptop, and so I need to submit a request. I want access to a shared mailbox, right? Those are some typical IT scenarios, or install some software on my computer. But if you, let's say, had to take some time off, you'd probably fill out a request, and it would go to your manager, or maybe HR, or maybe both. Maybe it goes to your manager, but then it notifies HR so they know how to subtract the time left that you have. If you're looking to plan a webinar, plan an event, you might want to coordinate that with your marketing department. I know I certainly did for this very webinar. There was a whole process that we went through to actually make sure that this was ready to go. And last but not least, I think a scenario that I think many of us run into, it's certainly one that we see quite often, it's one that we help build, automate, and orchestrate, is around onboarding new employees. If I, at the very least, am probably going to involve IT and HR. There's probably some initial approval process. Maybe it goes through a couple phases of work, and then ultimately IT then creates those users, licenses accounts, does their IT things. And some of that gets automated. And the reason I want to highlight this is because, again, this is what a multi-department experience is and what it can be inside of Tikit with teams. So I want to jump into actually a couple of those scenarios, and I'm going to start by sharing my screen. And so I will wait for Jeff or someone to tell me the moment they see it, or for someone to give me like a reaction that lets them know they see it yet.
Yeah, we see it.
Fantastic.
I told you, we were ready for the demo. That's all we want.
Okay. All right, cool. Well, then we're getting right into it. So let's just set the stage here very, very, very quickly. So on the left, over here in light mode, we have Adele, and she is our end user. She is going to need and want things. She is going to be our requester. And over on the right is Diego. He's in dark mode. He is our agent, and he is going to be actually handling requests that come into the IT department. Now, it probably goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway, is that, well, Diego and Adele are clearly two different employees in two different parts of the organization, and they work in different departments. They have different conversations. You can see that Adele is a part of a couple teams, whereas Diego, who again, he usually works in IT, but for today's webinar, I've given him a couple more responsibilities. He actually works in accounting and facilities and HR and IT market, right? He works in all of these other teams because these are the Microsoft teams that he's been added to. And this is really actually one of the very first things that's worth highlighting about the multi-department experience of Tikit is that Tikit can be deployed to as few or as many teams as necessary. And again, in my organization, accounting, facilities, human resources, IT, marketing, they all use Tikit. And it goes without saying that, well, we have different conversations in those teams. We share different files in those teams. And when we deploy Tikit to those teams, tickets assigned to that team stay with that team, right? Just for the same exact reason that conversation and files stay with those teams, so do the tickets, right? So Tikit by default, out of the gate, out of the box, respects these Microsoft silos of security. The team that you deploy it to can only see that team's tickets. And this same kind of like siloed experience extends itself into the agent portal as well. Let me just move this little Teams banner that's, I'm sure, invisible to everyone. So over in Tikit's agent portal, I'm signed in as Diego. You can see that he actually has access to several different types of items. He has access to all the tickets assigned to himself. He could see the tickets assigned to his peers, as well as some of the tasks as well. And if you look very closely in the team column, you can see that, again, because I added Diego to several different teams, he has access to those several teams' different tickets, right? He could see all the tickets in IT and some of the ones in HR. And again, it's because Tikit respects those silos of security. But to really drive this point home, I actually want to bring another employee onto the screen, and it's Lydia. Lydia right here. I'm going to bring this over here, and we'll look at Lydia. Now, Lydia only works in IT. She only knows the land of IT. And I wanted to bring this up because I want to highlight and stress again, depending on who you are in the organization, depending on the teams that you're a part of, well, you only see that team's respective work, right? And so Lydia, in this case, who's a part of IT, only has access to 6 things, right? A mix of tasks and some tickets, whereas Diego has access to 11 things, right? Clear difference. And the very first thing that I actually want to jump into is, well, this deploy equipment phase, because if this webinar is about breaking down silos, well, up until this point, I've been talking about how Tikit respects those silos of security. And the reason I want to jump into this onboarding task, and specifically this deploy equipment task, is because if you're looking closely on the screen, you might notice something that seems like it could undercut what I've just been saying. Because again, Lydia only works in IT. She only can see everything that's in IT, and that's it. She can't browse the other team's tickets, and she shouldn't be able to. But if that's the case, then how is it she could see this ticket that is currently assigned to human resources? After all, she's not in HR, so how is this possible? Well, this is made possible because when it comes to a multi-department scenario, which no doubt you're going to have tickets that move between different teams and different groups and deal with all sorts of different people across your organization, while this ticket is assigned to human resources, Lydia has a task. She has actually a couple tasks assigned to her inside of the support team. And because these tasks are assigned to support, and because they're assigned to her, and they're related to this HR ticket, Lydia is allowed to work, view, and edit this HR ticket. This is the one instance where she's allowed to actually kind of pierce through that veil of security and work this ticket. Now, let's be clear here. It's not as though Lydia assigned herself to this task. She can't self-elevate, right? It's not as though she could browse all the HR tickets and then decide this is the task that I want. She wouldn't even know, she wouldn't even have access to this ticket in the first place. So the question is, how did Lydia get here then? How can we actually ensure that Lydia is always brought into this ticket at the right moment, the right phase of work? And if you're looking closely, you'll notice that we actually have a couple other phases associated with this ticket, with this life cycle based ticket. There's clearly some finances, there's facilities, there's a candidate review, and there's IT. So how does this all come to be if, again, we don't want to assign them manually? That would take a lot of work. We'd want this multi-department experience to just function out of the gate. So let's view how this actually came to be. Let's view how this onboarding ticket, well, was created. So I'm going to go back over to Diego, and I want to jump into life cycles. Now, life cycles, if you're not familiar, is a way for us and for you to be able to build these multi-department experiences within Tikit. And it's a way to ensure that the right work is always assigned to the right person out of the gate all the time, every time. So in a life cycle, and specifically this is my employee management onboarding life cycle, you'll notice I have a title, I have a description. I said when the life cycle completes or fails, I want to automatically mark the ticket as resolved. I even gave a resolution category, right? So I'm always going to stamp and shape my ticket data so that if I ever want to report on this downstream, all of my tickets look consistent. And if they don't, well, that's an interesting reporting scenario, but it's probably for another webinar. But what I want to get to is the phases of work, that I've defined in this life cycle. Because the very first phase is, well, I have to perform a background check, and it goes to Lee. Lee is the one that actually gets to approve or reject a new hire. And assuming he does, you'll notice that we are actually just going to move along into financial management. And in this case, right, again, Diego's working a couple different jobs today. Diego is in accounting, and I'm going to make sure that, well, when financial management, this phase kicks off, these two tasks go out to Diego. Create an entry for payroll, set up an employee with a company credit card. And then when that's done, we'll move on to facilities, which is set up the office. Now, I want to draw your attention to something which is a slight difference between financial management and facilities. Inside of financial management, you'll notice that I have a couple tasks, and they clearly have a team, a group, and an assignee associated with them, right? I always want Diego to work this, and it's always going to go to accounting. But inside of facilities, kind of more open-ended. I just want this to go to facilities. I don't have someone in mind yet. It's really kind of just the first person who sees it, I want them to take it. So and then something else we can do, again, in this multi-department experience to make sure that we meet the needs of all of these respective teams or the preferences of all of these respective teams. And then finally, we're going to jump into IT. And here you could see this is where I've defined Lydia, so that every single time that an onboarding request is filled out and we get to this phase of work, Lydia is going to be assigned deploy equipment and license the user for given software. Now, there's something else also in this phase of work, and I should add, it can happen in any phase of work. And again, it's further to complement this multi-department experience, is that in my information technology phase of work, I have a Power Automate task. Because something else we can do with Tikit and our multi-department experience is that we can actually add Power Automate tasks into any phase of work that we'd like. I could put it in facilities if I want. I could put it in financial management. It doesn't matter. And when this phase of work becomes active, we'll automatically kick off a respective Power Automate flow. Now, why is this important? Well, it's great because now I can streamline and automate some processes, but I could do it within the context of a given phase of work. Said another way, for all of the citizen developers that exist inside of an organization, whether they be in IT, whether they be in HR, whether they be in any department, if they are agents, if they're licensed, they can actually hook in Power Automate flows into their respective life cycles, right? So it doesn't matter how your organization is actually organized, but the point is that you could build these Power Automate flows to work best for you, right? You could have IT maintain all of them. You could have the respective departments maintain all of their flows. The choice is yours here. Now, if I actually, let me go back really quick to Diego here. Go back to Adele. Some of those flows, for example, let's say that new hire flow, when we want to create a user inside of Intra, right? All begins with a trigger. And that trigger, we could say, is when a lifecycle PA task becomes active, and we get to choose what's the lifecycle, what's the phase, what's the PA task. And again, when it becomes active, all of this kicks off. Now, I don't want to spend too much time on this because, well, this is also probably its own webinar and set of discussion that I'm sure Jeff and I would love to have, but there's a bunch of more examples to get to actually inside of multi-department experience. Because the next thing that I actually want to get to is, well, probably one of the more common and more popular features of inside of Tikit, and it's being able to actually turn any conversation, any message into a ticket. And it just so happens that Diego is having a conversation with Adele, and it was about her laptop. It happened this past weekend, and if he wants to, he can just click on this message and create a ticket on her behalf. Now, the question you might ask yourself is, well, either I already knew about this, or okay, got it, he can create a message on her behalf. The real question is, what's the multi-department scenario involved in this? Why would I show this? Well, the reason is, small plot twist, is that Adele is actually not just an end user. Adele works in the marketing team. And Adele was having a conversation with Lydia. And she, just like Diego, has the ability to turn messages into tickets. She can go to this, create a ticket and ticket, and then assign that ticket to marketing. So I want to highlight this because I want to reemphasize that everyone can be the service desk and everyone can be a requester. And arguably everyone is a requester to one of the service desks inside of your organization. So just a quick thing I wanted to touch on there. So next, what's another way we can actually create tickets? What's another way we can actually meet some of our teams and departments where they are if they're considering moving some of their work into Tikit, or they'd like to better structure their work inside of Tikit? Well, another thing we could also do is we can actually convert emails to tickets. And if I go over to Adele here, and I head over into the Mail tab, she has a question for accounting. Quick question about invoices. I'm just going to send it. And when I send this email, what's going to happen is that this ticket is actually going to get created inside of the accounting team, because accounting has a mailbox configured with their ticket deployment. And if I were to go over to Teams, check this out. Well, let's see if I have to get signed in or not. We'll actually be able to see that accounting does have a mailbox set up. You can see that Adele's already got a notification that says your request has been received and processed. We'll be in touch shortly. And if we look back in Teams, right, again, Diego's part of a couple different teams today, you can see that we actually already have a brand new thread inside of accounting and inside of general. And if I click into this, we can see that's exactly the email that I sent, right? So it doesn't matter how your teams choose to work. And it's worth emphasizing again, this is not exclusive just to IT. IT can certainly use this email functionality, but if you have other teams that are used to working out of shared mailboxes, this is a great way to meet them where they are, especially for accounting. If they're handling invoices from maybe external vendors, or they have questions about things within the organization, there's one email box that will create tickets for them. Okay, so now what I want to pivot over to is, well, that's how you can create some tickets. That's how agents can create tickets. That's how end users can create tickets via email. What I want to talk about next is how end users, requesters, can self-service. And again, don't forget, everyone's technically a requester, right? Even your own service desk is requesters. And I want to start with Tikit Virtual Agent. Now, Tikit Virtual Agent is the bot that is deployed across your organization that allows you to, well, enable self-service. It also allows your end users, your requesters, to receive updates and notifications about the tickets that are being created or as they move through those various life cycles. But when you're just starting with Tikit, this is maybe what your Tikit Virtual Agent looks like. In fact, this is maybe the color and icon that your Tikit Virtual Agent looks like. This could be also the name Tikit Virtual Agent is just called inside of your organization. But as you're looking to expand to other departments, as you're looking to maybe brand this more company-wide, you might want to, well, alter this a little bit. And the good news is that you can do just that. Because if you were to head over to the Teams Admin Center, which is available at admin.teams.microsoft.com, and if you search for Tikit, you'll see Tikit Virtual Agent. And when I click Customize, that's exactly what I can do. I could rename Tikit Virtual Agent to something else, maybe that better aligns with my company, let's say mascot, for example. I could change the description, the full description. I can certainly change the icon, right? Maybe it's my company logo. And of course, I can also change some of the accent colors. So again, there are branding opportunities with Tikit Virtual Agent if you would like to make it more palatable, maybe to the rest of your organization, right? So that it's more on brand and it resonates, well, faster with your employees. Now, something else you could do with this, of course, with Tikit Virtual Agent, and you've probably noticed it because I actually have it on the screen here, is that you could also deploy a Teams app policy and ensure that Tikit Virtual Agent, or whatever you prefer to call it, is pinned to every single employee's Teams navigation menu. They get to see and always have a one-stop shop for those notifications, but also to submit requests. And that's what I'm talking about next, is if I have Tikit Virtual Agent, whether I'm talking with it in chat, or I'm right here with it, kind of the same thing. If I'm in chat with it, if I don't know what to do, all I actually do is I just have to type help. And you can see that, excuse me, is that I've actually already done that, but I'll trigger it again here. Here's my help card. This is the Tikit Virtual Agent help card. And it provides a list of offerings available to myself and everyone else in the organization. And you can see that I've actually put several popular items here from the teams that I've deployed Tikit to on the help card. And you can see that, well, if I want to trigger an office move, Facilities offers that. Finance offers reimbursement, maybe the ability to just create a generic ticket. Human resources, I can onboard an employee, IT, marketing, everything else. And something else I could do here, apart from be able to create tickets, maybe serve forms, maybe serve knowledge, is I can also add links to, well, any URL I'd like, right? So I could put something in for, let's say, the requester portal, which again, where Visual Service Catalog will be launching tonight. Or I could put external links to things like maybe the M365 portal or a company SharePoint, anything I want here. And the best part is that help, well, it's all you have to type and you get this card. And this card can be fully customized, fully styled. You can make it whatever you like. It could link to any other number of knowledge articles and requests and forms that you can fill out. So that's our help card. But what if I actually want to submit the request? Well, again, on the help card here, conveniently, I actually have onboard an employee. Tell you what, I'm going to click that because I want to go back to the lifecycle that we actually built, and I want to trigger the form. I want to trigger the template and the process associated with it. So here's my employee management onboarding form, and I can actually say something like, let's hire Sterling Archer. He's an agent. He's going to work in, let's say, legal. He is going to be a full-time employee. His start date's going to be next Monday. He's going to need a laptop and a phone and submit. Again, this is just one of the ways that an employee can self-service with Tikit Virtual Agent, whether they type help or whether they actually talk to Tikit Virtual Agent, say like, how do I onboard an employee? Help me onboard an employee, new hire. I can get that form back. And again, I can train that experience to ensure that as my organization requests those things, I can ensure that those needs are met and maybe associated with the correct response. And if you don't, I guess if you haven't seen that, because it's also probably worth touching, is like, how do we actually set that up? If I were to go back to Diego, I was to go into the knowledge base. Inside of Tikit's knowledge base, you can actually see, let's go find onboarding request, right? So these are ways that I can ask or phrase and talk to Tikit Virtual Agent to get that onboarding request back. Now, once I've actually kicked off that onboarding request, that life cycle will be applied, and all of those phases of work will kick off. But again, to come back to this idea of why this is so important in a department scenario, is that those phases of work, well, as they activate, so does their respective work. So this is Tikit 1432. Tell you what, I'm going to jump into 1432. When I do this, what's going to happen is that I can clearly see, like, here's those phases of work, here's that ticket. But what I want to reemphasize again in the multi-department experience is that since this is a life cycle with these phases of work, and as you'll recall, I did say that Lee was the first person that had to approve this. He is the one that has to approve the background check before we move to the next phase. I want to go back to Lydia. Lydia, 10, 15 minutes ago, right? She works in IT. She can only see IT tasks and tickets. She can only see the work that's actually active. What I want to be clear about here is that despite this ticket being created, Lydia currently has no idea that these tasks have yet to happen because they might not happen. Maybe this ticket gets canceled. Maybe Lee rejects this onboarding request. I just want to reemphasize that again, employees are told about the work that they have to do every single time correctly, right? They're only brought into the flow of work when it's actually their turn. So again, just another thing to highlight here about multi-department as well as the lifecycle portion of tickets. So now I want to jump into something else with Tikit Virtual Agent. And I haven't heard Jeff interrupt me so far. So I'm assuming there's either questions or waiting until the end. The last thing that I want to touch on here is that with Tikit Virtual Agent and this ability to self-serve, right? If I were to say like, onboard an employee, or if I were to say like, hire someone or hire an employee, right? I can get those requests back. I can talk to Tikit Virtual Agent to get what I'm looking for. What happens in the scenarios where, well, we don't have something built? We don't have a form to return to someone's response. We don't have a knowledge article such as how do I set up ticket? We don't have a knowledge base return when they ask that question. What happens then? Because if I were to ask something like, what are the company holidays? And I know I typoed, it should be okay. Is that when I talk to Tikit Virtual Agent and I ask this question, I actually get a generative-based response because Tikit also integrates with OpenAI on Azure, which means my data stays with me. All of my company documentation stays with me, and I can choose what to upload, and thus that automatically determines what gets responded back with. So when Tikit Virtual Agent does not know how to respond, you can actually fall back to OpenAI and your own internal company documentation to get responses. And you can see here that it tells me like, here's the company holidays. You can see that I have a citation, so I could see exactly the document that this came from, and I can go click and view that. I could also have something maybe a little bit more IT related. I could say like, how do I set up VPN on Apple, on my Apple device? Should get a response about this too. Because I uploaded some Apple VPN documentation, I get that response back. And again, I can upload as little or as much as I'd like into OpenAI on my Azure tenant to get these responses. And again, just to be clear, this occurs when there's not a configured response here in Tikit's knowledge base. Excuse me. So what makes this so important is that multiple teams, whether it be accounting, whether it be HR, whether it be IT, whether it be marketing, all of them no doubt have their own respective documentation. They might be stored in a OneDrive. They might be on a SharePoint. With Tikit, you actually can then funnel all of that up into Azure and into OpenAI, again, on your tenant. Your data stays with you, and return generative-based responses. And we actually have several knowledge articles set up that walk you through this. So if you want to deploy this, if you're considering deploying it, you could deploy this rather quickly. If you'd like to automate part of this process to where you could say every time a document is created on SharePoint or in OneDrive, automatically push it up to my OpenAI instance, that's also possible. We have documentation around that as well. And with that said, I want to take a break because I've been talking for almost a little over a half hour straight. I'd like to take a sip of coffee and turn to Jeff and ask, do we have any Q&A? Or are there any questions or anything people would like me to go over, maybe in more detail, or answer more questions on?
Well, I think we can allow them a little sip of coffee for a fantastic demo. And no, we did actually have one question. We forgot one item of housekeeping. We did bad housekeeping, Adam. We were asked about the recording of the meeting. So, bit late to give you this warning, but the meeting is being recorded. The webinar is being recorded and will be made available to you, and also be available on our YouTube channel.
Yep. Yes, it will.
But yes, I think everyone was probably quite engrossed in the demo, but now's a chance. If there's any questions,
yeah, certainly.
Open that question panel. Yeah, I've got one just come through, Adam. Great question as well. To integrate to another team, do all of them need to be agents?
That's a good question. I do like that. Short answer is no. You could have a team of 20 people and only 3 of them are agents. Not everyone has to be a licensed agent in a team to be able to work with Tikit. And best of all, if you had, let's say, 10 different channels in that team, you might only use a couple of them for ticketing, but the rest you don't. And that's also fine as well.
All right. Again, hopefully that answered the question. Please come back if not. The next one, I'm going to just publish it because I'm going to paste a response where I let you talk to as well, Adam.
Oh, yeah.
The question is, are there resources on how to utilize OpenAI and Azure?
Yeah. Yeah, there are.
So I'm going to paste the link to the KV article, but I'll let you talk to it.
Yeah, I will tell you what, I'm gonna share my screen again to show said KB article. So yes, there are steps, there's documentation, there are videos that I've recorded. I actually have to record a new video because we recently updated documentation about a week ago. It's much quicker to deploy now because you can actually just push this deploy to Azure button and fill out the few fields required, and the overwhelming majority of it will be set up for you. There's just a couple steps after, but it's all here.
Excellent. Right, can you show us? Get another question here. Can a group bridge between teams, or are groups nested exclusively under a team? That's a great question as well.
It is. So there is some new. There's a Microsoft nuance to that. So we are
love
currently.
Those.
Yeah, we love those. They're the best. So you can currently deploy Tikit to a team, and tell you what. Let me. I'm gonna bring up my. I'll bring up my screen again because I want to show off the groups. Let me finish loading this. Great. So as you may or may not know, groups map to channels inside of a team. And a team obviously could have many channels. It could have many groups associated with those. It could have a group associated with those channels. But the question here is, can a group bridge between teams? So on the Microsoft side, there is this concept of a shared channel, which allows you to actually, well, have a channel shared across several different teams. In Tikit, we do not deploy to those. And actually, this brings up a very interesting question. Maybe this is something for technically speaking tomorrow. Is how would you like that to actually function if that were the case? Because a shared channel has a lot of implications associated with it. And I don't know if I have time to get into what some of those nuances could be, but I would encourage you to come to Technically Speaking tomorrow. I would love to talk about it more. I think it's a great question, and if anyone else feels the same way, yeah, please come and join Technically Speaking too. I'd love to talk about it with everybody. Okay, next question. Would you see a feature being added so that a form can be passed between stages of the life cycle, i.e. someone in stage 1 fills out a form? Yes. Yes, I would. As a matter of fact, I would. Okay, I gotta keep. I'm gonna keep reading this. Yeah, it's past the stage 2 for a task for review. I'd approve. Yeah. How? Okay. There's a part of it I can answer, and there's another part of it where I'm like, I'm gonna watch my words. So, the first part of this is that what is under active development right now, and we will be releasing this year, is we're gonna be adding the functionality to have multi-turn cards, which is to say, when a requester is talking to Tikit Virtual Agent, they'll get a card, and then depending on how they answer it, they get a second card, and depending on how they answer that, they get a third card, and so on and so forth until they submit it. Now, your question, though, is asking kind of on the agent side, arguably, within a life cycle, within phases, if I have tasks, approvals, and Power Automate tasks, it almost would be interesting to have forms in those phases of work. We're talking about that. That is very much a discussion, because I think, yeah, I think we're thinking the same thing here. But yes, that there is discussion around being able to do that. And I'm not sure if Jeff wants to chime in. I know you're smiling, so
I'm just smiling because I've made the same feature request personally to you, Adam, because I just think it would be cool. I know there's a lot to that. But yeah, come on, give the people what they want, Adam.
Okay. Again, another follow-up, I would say, if you'd like to come discuss that on Technically Speaking, certainly a conversation I would love to have, and I'm sure other customers would like to have as well. Can you share the documentation link to Power Automate Flow for intra user creation? Let's see if we have. I think we have something like that. Isn't it like custom form? Right, Jeff? Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't it custom, like parsing custom form answers?
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get everyone a link, Technically Speaking, because I figured that was going to be the next question. I'll come back to that.
Yeah.
This is a question. Can you share the organization link to Power Automate Flow for entry user account creation? Oh yeah, let's publish that one as well, because I can get a link for that.
I will say if you're looking for an invite for Technically Speaking, just post the question, because the names are there, and then we'll know who to send it out to. Yeah, just do that.
All that, but I posted the question. I intend to answer it in a second when I can find the links.
Same. I'm looking for it. I'm also racing to look for it. Let's see. All right,
I'm doing the entry user one, so you will conquer.
All right. Let's see. I want to publish that. I want to publish that one. Publish that one. Yeah, published. Publish that one. Yes. Okay. Believe all the published ones have been answered. Oh, and I actually see 3 thumbs up on where I sign up for technically speaking. Got it.
Okay, right. I'm putting a link into the question about using Power Automate to create an entry user. And actually it kind of goes into a lot of the nuts and bolts of that. So whether you want to create a user in Entra or create a SharePoint site or create anything or basically do anything in Power Automate, the first half of that is kind of consistent. And then from then on, obviously the example in that case is how to then go and create a user in Entra. But from there on, you can go and do anything the Power Automate can do. But how to get the data out of Tikit, how to trigger it and all that kind of stuff is all covered in that article, which is mostly a video. So have a look at that.
Yeah, and again, the great thing about Power Automate is that there's so many connectors to Microsoft and non-Microsoft technology. So if you have a system that you're using that is not a 365 product, there's a decent chance there's a Power Automate connector for it that allows you to actually call out to it and perform actions within those systems. We get questions around this when it comes to things like we see a lot of marketing departments like to use Asana. So there's an Asana Power Automate connector, which allows you to kind of bridge those worlds. Same thing for like Azure DevOps. If you're using that to manage your release pipelines, that's another thing that you can integrate with Tikit. I know it's something that we integrate with Tikit because Power Automate makes that possible, as well as Logic Apps. If you prefer to live, if you're an Azure administrator and you prefer to live in Logic Apps, this also works there as well.
Double checking on the list. Think we're good. Well, I mean, if you didn't quite get to the question box in time, or you think of it as you're lying in bed tonight, or you're watching this on YouTube, then where can we go for questions, Adam?
You can hit us up at team@syrison.com.
All right.
All right, everyone. Well, hey, thanks for stopping by. This has been great. I'll see some of you on Technically Speaking tomorrow.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time.